Hello, this is a video I'm calling The Magic of Zugzwang. Zugzwang is a word in chess. It just means the compulsion to move. And more specifically in chess, it means whoever moves loses. I like to use a little bit broader of a definition of Zugzwang, where if one side moves, it loses. I like to clump those positions in with Zugzwang as well, simply because I haven't heard a better word for that type of position yet. I had a friend of mine just say, well, that's not technically Zugzwang, that's just unfortunate. But I can fit a lot of positions into the category of unfortunate. So, so I just need something for Zugzwang. You know, I need something where I can fit this in with Zugzwang. So if somebody has a better term other than fitting some of these positions in with Zugzwang. Like, I don't think forced mate is Zugzwang. You know, I don't think that counts. But if one side is frozen where they can't move any other pieces, I think that certainly counts as Zugzwang. Where anything they move and they're not under attack or something like that, I think that counts. So if somebody's got a better definition, please leave it in the comments for those types of positions. I would be curious to hear what that better definition is, but I'll just keep using my broader definition of Zugzwang, my slightly broader definition. In this case, this is really good classic Zugzwang. Whoever moves here is going to lose. If white has to move, he has to move away from the protection of his pawn, and if black has to move, he has to move away from the protection of his pawn. So whoever moves here loses. So an example would be king e6, and just king captures pawn, and this black pawn is going to make a queen, and that's just going to be the end of the game. Okay, but I really wanted to show today a really good exercise that you can do. And you can play this exercise against your friends, and it'll help you learn what Zugzwang really is. And that exercise is this position right here. So, and you can do this with the pawns on either side. So, like, you could have your 3 pawns over here versus 3 pawns over here. It doesn't really matter. This was actually a variant on a chess website a few years back. You could actually play this against people. It was actually a variant that you could play. And somebody showed me this variant, and I started playing with it, and I said, wow, this is really neat, because I thought this is just a really great way that you can actually teach Zugzwang. Because there's like 6 or 7 Zugzwangs that can happen here, and actually they can happen kind of by force if one side makes a mistake. And I just thought that was really neat. So let's go ahead and just jump right into this position and get started. So let's say white starts out with a move like h4. We're just kind of pushing our pawn up the board and threatening to eventually make a queen. And then black does the same, like black plays a5, and now white plays h5. Now, notice I just drew some arrows here. I did this earlier. So white's going to win because his arrows are going to attack black, and then all these green arrows will... No, that's not what those arrows are for. So no, the real reason I have these arrows on the board is because I'm showing you what the box of the pawn is. So basically, if black just keeps running his pawn, on white's very next move, white is going to be outside of black's ability to catch this pawn. If black can get to this box, black can still stop this pawn. If black is outside of this box, black can't stop this pawn. So at this point, the black king has to start coming in there to chase that pawn. So unfortunately, white's arrows don't allow him to win. So anyway, so king e8, and then we're going to bring our king in, king d2. And then we have king f7 and then f4. Now this is a really neat idea, is we just basically use these pawns like a knight move apart like this to defend each other. And you'll see why that works in a second. So we're going to bring our king up, and then white's king is going to come up, and then black is kind of going to do the same thing with his pawns. And now this is the really neat concept, is these pawns are actually defending each other. And the reason they're defending each other is because if the king takes this pawn here is going to run. And that's why these pawns are actually defending each other, and it's really neat. So what I wanted to explain in this position is just the concept of Zugzwang. Basically, each side in this position has this opportunity. They can gain tempos, and they can create some type of position by pushing either their b pawn or their g pawn. What's interesting is if either side does this, it's actually a mistake, because that will allow the other side to time out when he gets to move his b pawn or g pawn and create an identical position on the other side of the board where it's his opponent's move and his opponent loses. And these are all Zugzwangs in the very traditional sense. Whoever would move in these positions would lose. And I just wanted to show this because these positions are not happening by accident. These positions are happening by design. So let's say that one side, it's basically just whoever flinches. So let's say that we have the king just go back to c3, and then we have king f5, and then white goes ahead and white flinches first. White says, okay, I can't take it anymore. I'm playing the white pieces. I should have the initiative. I should win the game. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this. I'm going to play g4 and I'm going to try to win the game. Well, white just made a huge mistake, actually. I would say already white has lost. As unbelievable as that is, because no matter what, white is going to end up in zugzwang. And black is going to be able to maneuver his kings and pawns to create it. And I'm just going to show you exactly how that happens. So let's have the king go back to f6, and we're going to have white. Now, it doesn't matter what white does. White can do a lot of different things here. White can push his pawn. He can push this one. He can push this pawn. He can move his king. And actually, it's not going to make any difference. Black is going to be able to engineer a zugzwang. So we'll have white play h6. Black is going to play king g6. G5, king h7, f5. Okay? And now, it's black's move. And black has already got it set up, so no matter what white pawn move gets made, black will be able to counter it with a king move. This is very important. So like if g6, he's going to be able to play king h6. If f6, he's going to be able to play king g6. So since he's already got that set up, he's all ready to create that identical position on the other side of the board so that if white moves, white loses. He can do this by playing now. He moves his pawn up too. So he didn't flinch first. He gets to go second. He's going to move his pawn up too, and white's in the same situation black was in just a move ago. So now white can move back. He can play king b2. And he could have also played king c2, but I'll go over this variation for the other side because we're going to do it for both sides. So king b2, c4. And notice, no matter what we do here, black is going to be able to continue moving his pawns. So like, for example, king a3, we're going to play c3. And then if white moves his pawns, we're going to stop him. So f6, king g6. And then if king a2, b4. And we continue shuffling our pawns down the board like an avalanche. And we're just going to get there. King b1, a3, king c2, a2. And unfortunately, like even right here, if we go back to like right here, white really doesn't want to move here. If he could, you go back to that. Well, here actually, white's lost no matter what because the pawns are already too far advanced for black. So black is going to win no matter what. But if you just go back to here, and after black plays c4, white would very much like it to be black's move. If it were black's move here, actually white could save the game. If black had to make either of these, if he makes a pawn move, he's going to take it. If he makes a pawn move, he's going to take it. If he makes this pawn move, interestingly enough, he can move this king straight back. And I'll show you this concept in a second, but he can move the king straight back, and then he can stop all of black's pawn's moves. So if black moves up the pawn again, he can just bring his king back to b2. If black moves up the a pawn, he can bring his king to a2. And if black moved up the c pawn in that situation, he could bring his king to c2. So, okay, so we're going to go back. We're going to go back to this initial position where white flinched and white played g4. And we're going to do the reverse. We're going to say, okay, well, what if black flinches? What if black flinches first and he plays that move? Well, let's see. We'll do that scenario. So king c4 and then b5. Black flinches. Black says, I think you've made too many mistakes. Now my avalanche of pawns is going to come down and beat you. Except that it's not going to work out that way because black just messed up and white can achieve zugzwang. So king c3, king f6, and then king b2. Notice that white is trying to bring his king over to a3. And once he gets his king to a3, he'll be able to engineer an identical position on the other side of the board. Okay, so there's a couple possibilities here, but we're just going to do one possibility at a time. So we've got king to b2, and then we've got the move c4. It's certainly possible here. Remember I said I was going to show this idea where if they play b4, you can come back. I'm going to show that in a second. So like g4, king g7, so we're trying to engineer our way over here too. f5, look at what just happened. We have identical positions on both sides of the board. Wow, that's amazing. I bet this is zugzwang. I bet whoever has to move in this position loses. Now watch this. Black plays b4, and then white plays this just amazing move for zugzwang. Just boom, king b1. And the idea is simple. White can counter any of black's pawn moves with a corresponding king move. So like if c3, we're going to play king c2. If b3, we're going to play king b2. If a3, we're going to play king a2. And we're going to stop the pawns. And and black would very much like it to be white's move here. But unfortunately, it's not. So black is going to have to make a move, and it doesn't matter where he moves his king. If he plays king h7, we're going to move our f pawn. If he plays king f7, we're going to move our h pawn. And it doesn't matter, and these pawns are just going to keep coming. They're going to keep coming down the board. Okay, so you might say, well, after king b2, maybe it was just c4 was a mistake. Maybe we could have done something else. Okay, well, let's try something else. Let's just shuffle our king. Let's play king f5. We're going to bring our king to a3. And now we've achieved our zugzwang position with our king. So now all we have to do is force black into an identical position on the other side of the board, and we win. I know it seems impossible right now, but just watch. It's very simple. The king retreats to f6. Now we use our zugzwang tool. We played g4. We use our tool. We time it out. We use the tempo. It works perfect. No matter where this king moves, the king could move to f7. The king could move to g7. Now in the previous exercise, we had the king move to g7. So this time we're going to have the king move to f7. Okay, and we're going to have white actually force this identical position by playing h6. King comes over to stop it. g5. See what's about to happen? King h7, f5, and wow, the magic is zugzwang. It's a miracle. White has achieved zugzwang, and he did it completely by force. And in this position, black would be forced to move his king, and white's pawns would continue. And if black moves his pawns, white's going to bring his king in and stop up black's pawns. In this position, whoever moves loses. And more importantly, white forced it in this position, and it wasn't by accident. And so going back to the initial position, all the way back here where this all starts, you can set up this at home. You can play it against your friends. You can practice it. Just play it against somebody you got close by and practice these positions. Put yourself on a clock, and you will learn a lot about zugzwang just by playing this position. And it is really an important element of just about every endgame. So I hope you learned something new about chess. I hope this helps you get better at your chess game. And thank you very much for watching.